Yesterday is a film by Danny Boyle and Richard Curtis, likewise imagined a world without the Beatles, but it is uninterested in this kind of world building. The film is a tribute to the Fab Four, focusing on fandom rather than rock history. Unfortunately, it is not extremely concentrated. Yesterday is a lighthearted, fairly hilarious romantic comedy with terrific music, but it never fully commits to its characters, themes, or ingenious premise. The romantic comedy has a simple idea so appealing and enticing that you just know something will go wrong in execution. So in today's video, we are going to discuss this film and how it all came together. But first, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a big thumbs up. Yesterday is a high-concept film in the best way possible. Its idea has such symbolic power that it leaves the action and directing not nearly redundant but secondary. That is to say, it's the type of film that, in its elevator pitch, a singer-songwriter awakens from an accident to realize he's the only person in the world who knows the Beatles and their songs. Packs enough implications to appear to be a satisfying experience in advance. Imagine landing the starting part in a Beatles film. Tell us what you think in the comments. The musician, Jack Malik Himesh Patel, is of South Asian ancestry and is in his late 20s. He resides in Suffolk, England, with his parents, Meera Syal and Sanjeev Bhaskar. He formerly worked as a school teacher, but left that full-time employment to pursue a career in music. He now alternates between low-paying and underutilized solo gigs and works part-time at a discount store stock clerk. His manager, Ellie Appleton, Lily James, and long-standing friend is currently a full-time math teacher who works tirelessly to obtain gigs and takes him to and from them because he lacks a license, while expressing faith in the eventual musical success. But after yet another embarrassing performance in front of an audience of empty seats, Jack decides to call it quits. He bicycles home at night, is distracted by a worldwide blackout which lasts 12 seconds, is hit by a bus, and wakes up in a hospital bed, injured and bloodied, and discovers that even his closest pals don't understand any of his Beatles references. When he sings one of the Beatles songs for his friends, they gush over his songwriting, which inspires him to reproduce them from memory, because the records, of course, have vanished from his collection, and performs them as his own. Something to note here is how much everyone admires Jack's tunes, which are ultimately Beatles songs. This simply proves how excellent the Beatles songs were. As the story progresses, Jack becomes a local success and is profiled on local television. Ed Sheeran, playing himself, happens to catch the episode and offers Jack to open for him. With Back in the USSR, Jack becomes an instant star on stage for Ed's Moscow concert. Backstage, Ed defers to the newcomer, referring to him as the Salieri to Jack's Mozart. Deborah Hammer, Kate McKinnon, a Mephistophelian manager, lures him to Los Angeles and takes control of his career with promises of wealth and stardom. And she quickly makes it happen with a well-orchestrated series of moves ranging from recording sessions. Ed encourages him to change Hey Jude to Hey Dude, to marketing meetings, the online track drops, and an album release concert. However, the everlasting delivery of romance interferes, and Jack, forced by circumstances to confront the fraudulence of his reputation, is predictably persuaded to embrace the genuineness of love. Yesterday is essentially a romantic comedy, but it is a conceptually sophisticated, constructed on a particularly revolutionary private life framework and culturally conservative pop classism. Ellie begins the action by performing two jobs so that Jack may effectively do none. She unwaveringly supports the artist in his creative, albeit unprofitable attempts. Whatever her manager's cuts of his earnings is, it won't even cover the cost of gas. Ellie, as a manager, isn't given many opportunities to comment on Jack's career. She's more of a factotum than a mentor, and she doesn't give any advice on how he may better his work, which she lauds unreservedly, or his chances. Hapless Jack is a virtual adult child, living with his parents, with no sex life or romantic engagement, unable to sustain himself, or rather, unwilling to do so. His employment as a teacher would have sufficed, as would Ellie's, and his absolute reliance on the work of others is the catalyst for his independence. Furthermore, he can only analyze his emotional life, and the lives of people in his midst with any honesty and clarity when it becomes wealthy and famous. Yesterday is a radically immodest story about the deforming torment of failure and the liberating energy of success. It is brazen in its celebration of Jack's acclaim on the invisible shoulders of giants and the industry standard marketing vulgarity and image manipulation on which that success depends. The film is more than a celebration of a certain strain of musical history. It is a celebration of back repertoire, the genius of the system as a whole, and the system's ability to produce enormous classics that garner widespread acclaim, indeed, to do so twice over. However, yesterday fails to answer the question of what, other than the songs themselves, would be lost if the Beatles' music was wiped. The film could have been bold fun, imagining what wouldn't have happened if the Beatles didn't exist, and what might have happened instead, whether the current musical scene's relative poverty and studiedness, or the blooming of other, currently overshadowed, music varieties. But Boyle and Curtis don't seem willing to go out on such an extreme limb of fantasy, let alone historical analysis and critical imagination. Nonetheless, what's fascinating about the film, and what sticks with you long after the soft soap specifics and flimsy dramatic fades, is the idea of artists as archaeologists, activists, curators, and impresarios of lost or buried historical treasures. Yesterday is a movie created to delight critics by praising what they can do, resist cultural oblivion. It's no less than a Quentin Tarantino film, with its abundance of references pleasing critics' expertise and taste. The film crystallizes the idea that an obscure or forgotten body of work is the most significant artist in the world, and that it is one's particular mission to bring it to the recognition and affection it deserves. Those that are unable to perform must curate. Fear of cultural loss and the need for restoration has sparked massive conceptual shifts in other filmmakers of various talents and interests. The concept of sweeted movies, homemade replicas of Hollywood blockbusters by two video store employees to replace an archive of destroyed tapes, is larger, gritty, and more durable in Michael Gondry's 2008 film, Be Kind, Rewind. Concept also inspired Jean-Luc Godard's King Lear, a 1987 fantasy in which the world's finest art has been lost due to Chernobyl. In an era where physical media is being phased out in favor of streaming, the prevalence of rock documentaries and anniversary celebrations create a sense of imminent doom and the shoring up fragments against ruin. Yesterday is also a story about system failures, a literal failure of the global grid that results in a massive blank of cultural memory. Yesterday is a horror film about a real-life calamity in the making beneath its comedy. Now, let's talk about some questions you might have about the film. What genre is it? Yesterday begins as a high-concept comedy with a single strange idea, an inexplicable occurrence that erased the Beatles, among other things, from history, and only one man appears to remember their existence. The directors gradually introduce some somewhat biting satire of the music industry before settling into a basic story about small-town romance and the utterly predictable disadvantages of celebrity. Is it worth it? Yesterday is well-paced and frequently humorous, particularly in its early sections, which explore Jack's daily routine and the laws of his new reality. It naturally and effectively employs technologies such as smartphones and search engines, resulting in more efficient storytelling. McKinnon, despite being simply sketched, is a deliciously sharkish antagonist. Patel portrays Jack as sweetly idealistically, yet pragmatic, and he's a strong performer capable of carrying the film's many musical pieces. However, as the film focuses on Jack's bond with Ellie, his reasons grow increasingly hazy. Ellie isn't given much personality other than being the nice and supportive girl next door. The revelation that she's had a crush on Jack since high school and denies it until the worst possible moment is sad rather than lovely. The addition of a romantic competitor who appears to be deliberately aware of his status as a disposable plot device makes it even more dismal. There's no reason for these characters to be together, except for the tired premise that every male-female friendship is founded on unrequited love. Boyle and Curtis are making an alternate history film that isn't really about alternate history, which is a perfectly reasonable decision. However, the film's principal romance is poorly written, and its sloppy, joke-driven world-building undermines an already outlandish plot. Yesterday is a story about music's pure and everlasting nature, although it comes across as more rote than sincere at times. Thinking what critics had to say about the film? We've got you covered. Let's take a dig at that. Film critics. How does a fantastic piece of popular music emerge? The movie has never been particularly excellent at answering that question, but substantial efforts have recently been demonstrated differently. Last year's Bohemian Rhapsody delivered a predictable, crowd-pleasing number in which Queen, for the first time, foot stomps through We Will Rock You. Rocket Man imagined a lovesick Elton John sitting at his piano, breathing your song into life. Yesterday, a thinly imagined humorous fantasy in which people are constantly wondering about the inspiration for the Beatles songs from Hey Jude to The Long and Winding Road to Eleanor Rigby and all the rest. In the latest and most unbelievable of these rock and roll origin stories, the twist is that these queries are aimed at Jack Malik, Himesh Patel, EastEnders, a young English singer-songwriter who becomes the unexpected recipient of the Beatles' entire library, and whose creative process consists largely of scribbling down half-remembered lyrics on post-it notes. Let's take a step back. Jack is riding his bike home one night when an unexplained power outage occurs, just before he is hit by a bus and knocked unconscious. He heals, but the world is fundamentally changed, as he finds immediately after strumming yesterday on his guitar and leaving his pal speechless at his music abilities. The Beatles, it appears, did not exist, and he appears to be the only person who can recall, let alone perform, any of their songs. So there you have it, folks. That's all we've got from the movie yesterday. Have you seen the movie? If so, please share your thoughts and reviews about the film in the comment section. See you guys in the next one.